So good afternoon, or even good morning or good evening, depending on your current location. And greetings from Tokyo, Japan. It is a real pleasure to discuss my work on the Ethical Engage University at this webinar organized by the University of Tokyo Global Faculty Development Talk Series, The Frontier of Higher Education. And of course, I want to thank Dr. Hiro Saito, who is doing an excellent job in putting together speakers for this series, and colleagues for the invitation and the excellent work in organizing this overall event. And my name is Emiliano Bosio. I'm a professor of education based in Japan, and I've authored and co-authored multiple scientific articles in the field of global citizenship, critical, transformative, ethical, values-based pedagogy, collaborating with scholars such as Carlos Alberto Torres, Harry Giraud, Youssef Fakhdid, Peter McLaren, and others. And so some of my recent books include Conversations on Global Citizenship Education, published by Routledge, Global Citizenship Education in the Global South, published by Broll, and Value Creating Education, Teachers' Perceptions and Practice in Routledge, and then more recently, The Emergence of the Ethical Engage University, published by Springer. In terms of international journal publications, these include Exploring Values and Knowledge in Global Citizenship Education with William Godelli and Carlos Alberto Torres, Ethical Global Citizenship Education with Dan Schattel, and Critical Pedagogy and Global Citizenship Education with Harry Giraud. And so currently, I'm guest editing with Youssef Fakhdid and Silke Schwarbarsch a new special issue in the UNESCO International Review of Education on the theme of philosophical, ethical, and pedagogical perspectives on global citizenship education, a critical examination with educators from south to north. So if you're interested in this topic, please feel free to get in touch. And later, I will post in the chat my contact details. Let me also mention that I'm the editor of the Global Citizenship Education video interview series. This interview series on global citizenship is publicly available on YouTube, and the series has featured over 50 scholars worldwide, including James Banks, University of Washington, Betty Lisk, La Trobe University, Simon Mergensen, Oxford University, and Hans David, Boston College in the United States. So the Global Citizenship Education interview series provides what I call a video roadmap to relevant experiences in global citizenship education. And the interview series aims to be valuable resource for at least three groups of viewers: educators seeking to integrate the theoretical understanding of global citizenship into teaching practices, researchers new to global citizenship looking for dynamic starting points for their research, and general viewers interested in learning more about the history, philosophy, and practice of global citizenship education. And so this webinar today is given by a scholar, myself, based in Japan, who has collaborated with academics worldwide, including those in both the global north and the global south. For instance, my experience includes working with scholars in countries such as South Africa, Tanzania, Trinidad and Tobago, Malawi, Ghana, India, Zimbabwe, Mexico, Jordan, the United States, the United Kingdom, Israel, Canada, Brazil, Italy, South Korea, China, and Japan. And in many ways, therefore, this webinar on the Ethical Engage University, as well as my books and scientific publications, are informed by the valuable insights from numerous scholars who participated in my interview series on global citizenship. So an excellent example, I should say an excellent outcome of my international collaborations with experts across pedagogical fields is my forthcoming book, Ethical Global Citizenship Education, soon to be published by Cambridge University Press and available for preview in their intercultural communication series on the website. And so the book is partially, I would say, informed by the rich variety of conversations I had with international scholars in my Global Citizenship Education video interview series. And I believe that this will be an influential book project, not only because it's published by Cambridge University Press, a highly respected publisher, but also because the book is written in a way that is accessible to both academics and general readers. Before we start, let me briefly share that I recently returned from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, where I had the pleasure of speaking at the Times Higher Education Asia University Summit. And so this panel, titled Innovative Approaches to Curriculum Design and Skills Development, addressed key questions relevant to the concept of the Ethically Engaged University, which I will discuss today. And so specifically, the panel examined questions such as how can universities strike a balance between specialization and a holistic education approach? How can we equip students for careers that do not yet exist? And should we integrate ethical, values-centric knowledge into the curriculum? And so overall, the summit provided an excellent platform to explore themes of ethics, passion, sustainability, and AI in pedagogy and curriculum design. And so these discussions, I believe, are central to the evolving role of universities in shaping ethical future leaders. So today we have an excellent and diverse audience, and therefore I will focus on three core points. First, I will answer the question, what is the Ethically Engaged University? Then I will delve into 5 key elements of the Ethically Engaged University, namely decolonialism, caring ethics, ecocritical views, global moral consciousness, and lastly, humanity empowerment. And I will conclude my talk by suggesting why the idea of the Ethically Engaged University is both necessary and powerful, along with a brief summary of the main points I discussed today and some practical examples. And then finally, I will provide you with an opportunity to ask questions about the topic of the Ethically Engaged Universities, as well as notions of ethical knowledge and values in higher education. So let me begin by addressing the question, what is an ethically engaged university? So to answer this question, we must first ask ourselves, what is a university today in our super complex societies? And so as I began investigating such questions, I wanted to gain insight into whether the notion of the ethically engaged university could represent a distinctive framework to reimagine higher education from a more ethical perspective for the common good, specifically a type of university inspired and shaped on critical, transformative, cosmopolitan, humanistic, and values-based theories. And so therefore, the Ethically Engaged University is not, and I repeat, is not an educational institution type that exists for a global elite. Instead, it is an ethical platform oriented towards social justice that offers all students, not just the rich ones in the global north, a meaningful way to examine our shared planet. And here, planet as a capital P. And situate the discussion around the Ethically Engaged University within an ethical paradigm informed by values such as social justice, critical consciousness, fairness, equity, respect, and integrity. And so the Ethically Engaged University is informed and inspired by the idea of a global ethic, making a specific commitment to learners' emancipations of the human spirit towards principles of global justice. Specifically, an ethically engaged university is one that is more inclusive, differentiating, permeable, ethically reflective, integrative of experience, and socially responsible. So examples of these different types of ethically engaged universities include the University of Wisdom, the Civic University, the Human Rights University, and the Ecological University. And I posit that if discussed in this perspective, an ethically engaged university can uphold the pedagogy of hope, or alternatively, an ethical pedagogy, demonstrating that higher education has not become completely detached from real life or fallen short of exploring issues of politics or morality. Therefore, the ethically engaged university is focused on informing strategies for re-envisioning the role of modern-day universities in super complex societies, looking well beyond passive and market-driven approaches to incorporate a philosophy centered on values and ethics, and it is informed by principles of mutuality and social responsibility. So the ethical engaged university must be strongly linked to notions of civic accountability, social engagement, transformation, environmental sustainability, and the reflective dialogue. And to do so, the ethical engaged university utilizes what I call a value pluralism model. So value pluralism, or also known in the literature as ethical pluralism, takes the perspective that numerous key principles, for example, humanity empowerment, autonomy, carefulness, and wisdom, need to be combined to achieve holistic and effective learning journeys within universities, all of which will blend and merge to a certain degree. And so, while it would be challenging to explore all key principles, and I did that in a variety of publications, I will focus on 5 key principles of the ethical engaged university, which I discuss today: decolonialism, caring ethics, ecocritical perspective, global moral consciousness, and lastly, empowering humanity. So let me address the first element, decolonialism. The ethical engaged university promotes decoloniality and diversity rather than neutral universal subjectivities. Unfortunately, globalization is asymmetrical. There is not, and I repeat, there is not an equal balance of power between the global north and the global south. And I contend that the problems that must be addressed are those of injustice and inequality, and not only poverty and development, important as they are. And so in this view, I believe that an ethical engaged university demands that educators develop a critical literacy, supporting learners to undertake an analysis of their preconceptions, positions, and even identity as they relate to the complexities of local and global issues. So the ethical engaged university seeks to develop in all learners what I define as hyper self-reflexivity, with a pedagogical focus on dissensus that would assist learners in dealing with complexity and paradox. Let me address the second element, caring ethics. So the ethical engaged university promotes the concept of caring ethics while encouraging learners to care for individuals and human rights as a foundational pillar. So from this perspective, I suggest that the ethical engaged university must be founded on compassionate ethics, attempting to comprehend, analyze, and find resolutions for the contemporary crisis of migration. So the ethical engaged university approach represents a pursuit of holistic education encompassing outcomes that include, among others, spirituality, art, aesthetics, and ethics, as well as ambitions toward the creation of peace. And this aligns with the UNESCO Commission report of Jacques Delors titled Learning the Treasure Within, which emphasizes the importance on living in harmony with one another and with the rest of the planet. Let me address the third element, ecocritical perspective. So the ethical engaged university encourages ecological consciousness and supports learners to examine the injustice created by humanity's perception that it is the supreme being on earth. And so by swapping out ego for eco, we can move the focus away from a human-centric attitude. Or one of the objectives of the ethical engaged university is to foster in our students eco-ethical consciousness that considers the environmental and social impacts caused by human decisions as effectively indivisible. And so in this context, it is interesting to bring in the notion of more than human, which describes the more substantial ecological relationships that prevail on Earth, exclusively based on those systems that only focus on human-to-human relationships. And so the more than human notion is also central to our discussion on the ethical engaged university because it embraces rocks, soil, forest, stream, animals, and plants to make the point that the notion of interconnectedness goes beyond human beings and comprises all living beings. And therefore, in this discussion on the ethically engaged university, I advocate for an eco-pedagogy oriented towards fostering consciousness about the intertwined human-environment relationships that demand an amalgamation of education for and through social and ecological justice. In the university setting, this discussion can be implemented, for instance, by examining the concept of buen vivir. Buen vivir is a notion that has been integrated into the Ecuadorian constitution in 2008 and the Bolivian constitution in 2009, describing a way of acting in society that is community-centric, ecologically balanced, and culturally sensitive in the ongoing construction of a more just and peaceful planet. Let me address the fourth element, global moral consciousness. So the global moral consciousness element of the ethically engaged university I discussed in this webinar encompasses the cultivation of a type of humanistic consciousness that transcends national, ethnic, geographic, and even religious boundaries. And so this approach consists of an awareness of other perspectives, viewing a single humanity as the primary level of community, and having a moral consciousness to act for the good of the world, or I should say, of the planet. It also encompasses elements of autonomy and carefulness. And so from this perspective, I propose a vision of the ethically engaged university as a mode of thought and action with a basis in the connection of humanity with autonomy and carefulness. However, autonomy in this context does not mean that the student is separate from society. Rather, it involves a type of university ethically oriented toward cultivating the student's relationship with others, and its supports must develop student appreciation for the notion of carefulness towards the other. And so this refers to the influence of the individual situation and proposes that it is possible to be responsible for one's personal life and philosophy. And so humanity is a foundation that supports individuals, hypothetically at least, to improve their human potential by reflection and dialogue, acquiring the necessary resources for living a worthwhile life based on the notion of carefulness, living in harmony with others on the basis of a moral code, and assisting others in living valuable lives. Lastly, let me address the fifth element, empowering humanity. I believe that empowering humanity requires the ethically engaged university to open a path for the personal improvement of every student, not only those white, rich, and located in the global north. And so the term empowering humanity is often used interchangeably with collective emancipation because both entail waging a struggle against inequality. There is a subtle difference, however. Collective emancipation stresses flattening the power relations that exist between groups. On the other hand, empowering humanity embraces all aspects of human behavior. And so the ethically engaged university must emphasize an interpersonal dimension that recognizes the human drive to live harmoniously and responsibly with others while seeking to address social inequalities through community engagement and the promotion of social justice. Okay, herewith I offer some examples, not all, but some examples of how an ethically engaged university might operate in practice. And this is because a common question I receive when speaking at webinars and international conferences is, can you provide an example of how an ethically engaged university might operate in practice? And so when addressing this question, I assume that an ethically engaged university integrates ethical considerations into its core functions, namely learning, research, and community engagement. And so, as you can see, we have Stanford University Center for Ethics in Society, University of Cape Town, Poverty and Inequality Initiative, University of British Columbia Indigenous Research Partnerships, University of Melbourne Social Equality Institute, University of Oslo Norwegian Center for Human Rights, Arizona State University School for the Future of Innovation in Society, Harvard University Humanitarian Initiative. Now, we don't want to go through all the list in that table, but I want to briefly mention 3 case studies. So the University of Cape Town Poverty and Inequality Initiative tackles climate change, crime and violence, the crisis in the school sector, and poverty and inequality. The University of British Columbia Indigenous Research Partnerships perhaps connects to the decolonial element of the Ethical Engaged University by focusing on indigenous community and prioritizing ethical engagement by ensuring research is conducted in a manner that respects indigenous knowledge, cultures, and rights. They follow ethical protocols that involve indigenous peoples in all stages of research, from design to dissemination. And then lastly, the University of Melbourne Social Equity Institute focuses on addressing social inequalities through interdisciplinary research and community engagement. They work on projects that promote social justice, informed by ethical principles of fairness, inclusion, and respect for diversity. So these examples at least partially illustrate how university can embody ethical engagement by integrating ethical principles into their academic and community activities, fostering environments that are oriented at least in theory, to prioritize justice, equity, and respect for all stakeholders. So let me conclude with this question. Why is the notion of the ethical engaged university both powerful and necessary? The notion of the ethical engaged university is both powerful and necessary because it seeks to address a central question. What knowledge and values should the universities promote to shape a new form of ethics and new thinking about society and communities? And so in answering this question, I suggest that the ethical engaged university, at least potentially, must promote a reorientation of learners' responsibility towards an orientation that adheres to the belief that knowing without acting is insufficient. And I will repeat this again, knowing without acting is insufficient. And so we might have underestimated ethical values in academia, and yet ethical values are, or at least should be, a key part of our pedagogy, teaching, and research, particularly when it comes to higher education. And so one of the key suggestions that I offer today is that discussions on the ethical engaged university should find a special place in our university's deliberations. And indeed, the ethical engaged university, in its ethical essence, raises questions not only about the meaning of ethical knowledge and values themselves, but also brings into view matters of the purposes of higher education and the kinds of human beings that higher education seeks to develop in the 21st century, the era of globalization. And so this is particularly relevant in relation to the responses of higher education to neoliberal globalization and what we mean by ethical values and knowledge in higher education. As Professor Hans David eloquently suggests in his foreword to my book, The Emergence of the Ethical Engaged University, moving away from a more competitive and exclusive higher education toward a more socially responsible and inclusive one is more necessary than ever, given the severe challenges our global society faces: climate change, pandemics, poverty, and inequality, among others. Thank you for listening, and next I will be delighted to answer your questions.